Did you know that evolutionary biology is screwing you over? Let me explain. I've always been fascinated by how extraordinary people think. This is the subject of my upcoming new book, Consciousness Engineering. One of the things that I found is that almost everyone operates in the world based on certain patterns that they took on as a child, as a young adult. These patterns govern their beliefs about the world. It makes them decide what is true and what is not true. It also governs their habits. This makes them decide how to work, how to love, how to learn. Now the problem is, many of these patterns that we're operating on have not evolved. Just like many years ago, human beings believed the world was flat. Then we evolved and we started to understand that the world was round. Then we figured out that the world wasn't just round, but it was one of many planets operating around a sun. Our understanding grew. Likewise, our understanding of almost every different aspect of the human experience, from education, to parenting, to health and nutrition, to aging, to sex, to learning, is constantly evolving. But most of us and our education system do not evolve as fast. It stays stuck and rooted in older models. Now, as a result, in the world, you find huge disparities between people who are operating at their peak in all of these areas and most people who are operating in mediocrity. Now, the thing is, how do you step out of these patterns? Well, first, you have to see the patterns. But you can only see something when you have a name for it, when we label it and give it a name so that you recognize it. There's an interesting power in names. There's this debate right now on whether ancient cultures could see the color blue. See, some of the scientists who were studying this noticed that if you go back at literature in ancient China, there's no mention of the color blue. Even in the ancient Greeks, Homer's Iliad referred to the Aegean Sea as the wine dark sea. There was no mention of the color blue. So one scientist wanted to see if not having a word for the color blue meant that we could not see it in certain cultures. So this scientist chose to study a particular tribe in Namibia called the Himba tribe. The Himba had many words for the color green, but no word for the color blue. Now check this out, right? They first showed the Himba this picture with different green squares. Can you see the square that stands out? Most people can. If you can, congratulations. To the Himba tribesperson, they could easily spot the square that was the unusual color of green. But then they showed the Himba this picture. Can you see the square that's blue? Remember, the Himba have no word for the color blue. To you, the blue square is obvious. But to the Himba tribespeople, they could not pick out the blue square. It was invisible to them. And the lesson here is, things often remain invisible unless we give it a word, we give it a name. So we're going to give a name to the patterns that we're all operating in. And the name I like is Brules. A Brule is a bullshit rule. It's a rule that we took on not through rational choice, but through imitation, through conditioning. We take on rules through many different ways. We'll discuss some of them in a moment. But here are many of the rules which I think exist in the world today. We live our entire lives as human beings, sometimes making faulty decisions because of these rules. Rules like university education is absolutely necessary to have a decent career. Every woman needs a man. 9 to 5 is how work should be. Religion is needed for salvation. The pursuit of money is inherently bad. We have different roles and functions in the world based on whether we are male or female. Aging is a natural part of life. Success equals hard work. Love is painful. Be realistic in your goals. All of these are rules if you want them to be. For almost every one of the rules I listed, there's research, there are studies, there are new thinkers who are showing that these are not necessarily true. Yet so many people experience so much pain because they believed in this. So how do we take on rules? There's something really interesting about being human. All of us were born premature. According to the book Sapiens by Yuval Harari, as human beings evolved and our brains got bigger and early man started standing erect, it became harder and harder for women to deliver these human babies with their ever-expanding brains. And as a result, almost all human babies are delivered prematurely. A baby colt, a young horse, can stand up on its own, but human babies are completely helpless. Hariri says, since humans are born underdeveloped, they can be educated and socialized to a far greater extent than any other animal. Most mammals emerge from the womb like glazed earthenware emerging from a kiln. Any attempt at remolding will only scratch or break them. But humans emerge from the womb like molten glass from a furnace. They can be spun, stretched, and shaped with a surprising degree of freedom. This is why today we can educate our children to become Christian or Buddhist, capitalist or socialist, warlike or peace-loving. So you see, many of us, through childhood indoctrination, through what we believed and how we were molded as kids, take on our beliefs about the world. Childhood indoctrination is the #1 cause of Brules, and we take most of these beliefs on before the age of 7. But there's a second way, and that's through authority figures. Priests, teachers, fathers, mothers, all of these are seen as authority figures at some point in our lives. Most of them are amazing and good. But because we give them authority, those that might have a Brule can easily implant that Brule onto us. And finally, we take on Brules because of a deep-rooted desire to fit in. As soon as you decide that you're going to vote Republican or Democrat, you unconsciously take on Brules that might exist within these labels. Likewise, when you pick a religion, or if you were indoctrinated into a religion. You see, as we evolved, human beings had to fit in. There was no longer safety in being the solo hunter-gatherer. We had to be part of tribes, of villages. So we have this deep-rooted drive to fit in. The problem is, because we need to fit in, we often irrationally accept the Brules of the tribe we are trying to be part of. So my work is about Brule breaking. And what I've been doing with my research project, Consciousness Engineering, is interviewing many of the most extraordinary people around the world to identify how they see the world. You see, all Brules are either beliefs or they are habits. I call beliefs models of reality. What we believe is our model of reality will tend to be true for us. Extraordinary people have radically different models of reality. And the second are our habits or our systems for living. People who are performing at their peak have radically different systems for living than people who are just blindly following life. As part of this project, we also give names to these new models which are evolving. You see, as I mentioned before, names are important. When you grant something a name, you start to be able to see it. And then you can decide that you want to step out of the patterns and step into something at a higher level of evolution. So take, for example, people who identify with the Republican Party, love the economic policies, but may disagree with some of the social policies. The name libertarian emerged, and all of a sudden, these people had a new tribe they could feel part of. Likewise, there are many people out there who value being spiritual, but they don't identify with organized religion. And for many years, they felt lost until the name spiritual but not religious emerged. Today, 1 in 3 American millennials identify themselves as spiritual but not religious. You see, these names are powerful because they give us new patterns we can step into. In terms of work, they are names emerging for new styles of organizations that create flat hierarchy and are about heart and not just process. Here at Mind Valley, we're looking at evolving into a teal organization. That's a name coined by evolutionary thinkers such as Ken Wilber for new organizations built around conscious practices. In terms of diet and exercise, there are people who refuse to identify with all models of exercise, all models of dieting, and they've coined a new word, biohackers. Biohackers are people who are using modern science and technology to identify new ways to have their bodies perform at peak performance. So you've now learned the word Brule. Hopefully you can now see how you might be taking on some of these Brules in your life without questioning. And you now know that there are new models emerging across the world that you can step into. Whether you're looking to improve how you eat, or how you exercise, or how you love, or how you form relationships, or how you design your workplace, there are new models emerging all the time. So I'd like to throw it back at you. What do you think are some of the Brules that might be holding you back or holding society back? Share those in the comments field below. And also read what other people are sharing, because often from the labels and the ideas that they share, you might discover a Brule or two that might be holding you back. The important thing to know is that Brules are swappable. Your Brule is not you. It governs how you function in the world, but it's not you. And because it's not you, you can uninstall a bad Brule and you can install a good Brule something that can truly empower you. Once you can see the patterns, the beliefs and the systems that you're operating in, changing them, upgrading them, evolving them is completely within your control.